This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. My guest today is Canadian journalist Ethan Liu. Ethan is the author of a new book called Once a Bitcoin Miner, Scandal and Turmoil in the Cryptocurrency Wild West. Hey, welcome to the show, Ethan.
Andy, hi. Thank you for having me.
Hey, man, it is a pleasure. Hey, so yeah, I'm really fascinated by this story. So I guess, you know, the high level is Once a Bitcoin Miner, your new book. Yeah, it's the story of you going to North Korea for that kind of ill-fated North Korean cryptocurrency conference. And also in attendance was Virgil, is that how you say it? Virgil Griffith from the Ethereum Foundation, who of course was subsequently arrested. And well, look, this is your story to tell. So before we get into all this, let's just start from the top, Ethan. I'd love it if you could just introduce yourself and give us just a basic snapshot of who you are before we get into this crazy story.
Yeah, so I am a journalist. I write a column in this Canadian newspaper called The Financial Post, and I used to write for Reuters, and we all contain multitudes. And I'm also a Bitcoin investor, and I know early is a bit of a subjective term, but I like to think I got in quite early in 2013. And the book basically, in addition to that North Korea trip, it also depicts my adventures early in the space and then also after that.
Yes, that's exactly right. Very nice. Well, I'm just wondering where we start. So you're actually born in China, right? But as I understand it, you grew up in Germany. But how does your kind of background play into, I don't know if your background does play into your trip to North Korea, but I guess what I'm saying is, why did you want to go to North Korea in the first place? Was it more just like a kind of journalistic interest? How did that come about?
So the background does play a little into that. So my parents, my father specifically, he's always said that, you know, when we talk about North Korea and I tell him all the crazy oppressive stuff that goes on there, he'd be like, that's not that crazy. Like China was like that when I was growing up. And so to me, North Korea has always been like a time capsule thing because China is changing. It's changed so much over the years, but North Korea has stayed the same. So in a way, I've always wanted to go there because I thought if I see North Korea, I would see how my parents grew up. And so that's one. And the second factor is the crypto thing. I've been reading all about the different reports that North Korea is doing all these shady things with crypto. And when they advertised a conference, I thought this would be like this golden opportunity to see everything for myself. And so that was why I went there. And yeah, the trip turned out to be totally the opposite of my expectations.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, paint us a picture then, Ethan. So I think because this is, I suppose, this is a few years ago. This is 2019. So just tell us a little bit about the kind of the background to this conference and the kind of, I suppose, the mainstream news narrative that was underway at the time in terms of North Korea's relationship to cryptocurrency, what they were supposedly doing, and what perhaps their motives were for announcing a cryptocurrency conference. What was the background?
So North Korea, lots of countries don't like North Korea because there's lots of human rights issues going on there, and this pursuit of nuclear weapons against the global order. So North Korea has been hit over the years with lots and lots of economic sanctions. It's one of the reasons why it's so poor. It's virtually impossible for it to conduct international trade. And theoretically, crypto, which is outside the traditional financial system. It cuts at the heart of all that. So theoretically, North Korea has a lot of potential advantages for North Korea to harness this, and it has been accused of stealing coins all over the place, with hundreds of millions amassing all these coins, and even mining operations reported. So this was the background of it, and this conference was advertised. I think I read reports, and there were experts saying that this was like a show of defiance, like North Korea was showing off its capabilities, or somewhere along those lines. So I went in expecting to at least get a glimpse of what North Korea was doing with crypto. And I should say also that this was mainly a personal trip. I totally did not expect the trip to make the news in the way it did.
Yeah, right. So, well, just before we start to talk about Virgil and what happened to him, and perhaps his background, it's just fascinating. Not many people have been to North Korea, so I'd love it if maybe you just paint a picture of your impressions of North Korea, I suppose, as a country, what the people were like. Were you looked after? What was surprising? Anything like that, and then we'll start to talk about the conference and Vigil.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was clearly very underdeveloped by Western standards in many ways, and I think culturally there are lots of differences with respect to how they use technology. For example, I see our North Korean minders pick up the phone and call people for very simple things like yes/no stuff that we would use, we would text each other for. And I saw them in their teachers' college, and they were using an unactivated version of Windows. And they were, so aside from the actual 2 days of the conference, we were there for a whole week. So they took us around and showed us around. And one of the strangest things I would think is like they were trying to show off lots of different things to us, and what they were presenting as big accomplishments, but they were just extremely unspectacular, like arcade games that they developed that they seem to be decades old. And one of them, as I write in the book, it didn't even seem to have any objectives or levels. You just took a gun and you just killed animals and just unending carnage.
Yes, that was a very good analogy there, and it's quite strange. I suppose the minders, or the people looking after you and that are proudly showing off these, what you and I would characterize as unspectacular achievements, Ethan. From the minders' point of view, or whoever's showing you and putting on the tour, if you like, are they're just that unaware of what is happening in the rest of the world, and they've been instructed to show, whether it's a landmark or a technological achievement or a cutting edge video game. From their perspective, I suppose they're just instructed to show it off like it's a quite an incredible feat, right?
Yeah, I should say though that the minders, they were. I don't think they're ordinary North Koreans. They were probably the elite, and we actually got along quite well. But they are people who've been abroad, who've seen the world, and but they were just bringing us to these places because I think that's their job, and just doing as they're told. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if you don't do that, well, best not speak of what happens. Well, take us to the cryptocurrency conference then, and be useful maybe, Ethan. Tell us who else was there, like from well, not from the West, but from outside of North Korea, I suppose. Excuse me, in terms of who was there in the audience, or from from the media, or even as a presenter, or someone who was a bit more involved as an advisor or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So first off, I would say that going to North Korea for this is understandably a sensitive issue, particularly given how everything developed with Virgil. So if someone hasn't publicly said that they've gone to North Korea, I wouldn't out them. So aside from Virgil and me, there are two other people publicly known to have gone to that event. So one is a British guy, Christopher Ems, he was the organizer. And the other is it's a cybersecurity specialist, Fabio Pietrosanti from Italy. So, and altogether there were 8 of us, mostly assorted Europeans. And I know Virgil because he's a kind of a big deal in the crypto world. So he's a director of special projects for the Ethereum Foundation. So he was supposed to be a speaker at this thing, but for the rest of us, we thought we were participants. And I think on the first day when we arrived, we were told that the schedule for the specific schedule for the conference hadn't been determined, and that we were expected to present to the Koreans, and which was unexpected to me. I thought I was there to like, watch them, but turned out it was the other way around.
Wow, that's quite strange. Quite strange. Well, Virgil then. So as you say, Virgil was and is well known in the blockchain space, and particularly in the Ethereum community. What do you think his, and I know this kind of cuts to the heart of everything, but what do you think his motivations were for attending the conference? And do you know what was the kind of string of events that led to him attending? Do you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have any direct insight into that. I think we did talk about that, but I think the first thing that happened when the first thing someone said to me when I met the group, it was in Beijing before we left for Pyongyang. It was at a Peking duck restaurant. I went in. One of them said to me, "Yo, what made you decide to risk your life to go to North Korea?" And I said, "Well, what about you?" And we all laughed. And I think we probably all shared a certain sense of adventure. And also with the North Korea crypto connection, we are people interested in crypto. And I think all of us, we've all read those reports, and we wanted to see firsthand what North Korea was up to with crypto. But that's a bit of a speculation on my part. I don't think we all went too deeply into like why specifically each of us decided to go there. And even in North Korea, Virgil, he did tell us that he had sought permission from the State Department to go to North Korea, and because Americans can't go without express permission, and it was denied, and he went anyway. And he was telling us he was going to go talk to State Department officials when he came back, because they wanted to talk to him. And I don't think he suspected anything, and that was the start of how everything turned out really badly for him.
And so, I mean, this might sound like a kind of a basic question, but I think it would help provide some context here, Ethan. Like, so, assuming that after the conference and when Virgil goes back to the US or wherever he went afterwards, and then began to speak with the State Department or whoever, and things developed from there. Did you also were you contacted by, I don't know, the the CIA or the FBI or the NSA or the State Department or whoever it is, because presumably anyone who has been to North Korea would come. I know you're Canadian and not American, but were you contacted?
So I wasn't, and to my knowledge, not everyone was. Some of the other participants were, but they were sought out because the government was trying to build a case against Virgil. And so going to North Korea, it's not that big a deal. Lots of people do that every year, I guess, before the pandemic when it was open to tourists. And I think Virgil was, if I'm not mistaken, he might be the only one who spoke at the conference who was supposed to speak there. And I didn't even speak at the conference. So I think that might have played a factor. And also the law he was accused of breaking, it applies only to Americans, and he was the only American. And I should note that he wasn't charged with going to North Korea, because I don't think there's any specific penalty specified for simply going there. It's a more specific thing about the attempt to break the sanctions.
Yeah, that's right. And will be useful at this point, Ethan, perhaps tell us a little bit about who Virgil is, like just a kind of a little bit about his background, and then the charges against him and what has happened just, I think, quite recently, because that will kind of bring us up to date. So yeah, just from your perspective, love to hear, a little bit about his background, the charges against him, and where we are today.
Mm-hmm. So Virgil, I think, is very smart. I think he definitely has like 10 or 20 IQ points more than me. And I'm not saying that I'm a high bar, but he's like definitely like a genius. And he's very open and transparent. I think there's a description of him by a friend, which is that he treats life like a video game. And I remember among my most significant memories of him in North Korea, he was describing to the North Koreans like lots of, I think, outside world phenomenon that we may think is mundane, but like North American slang, for example. If you pop your collar and and you say like, I'm doing this for the ladies, and that's something quite alien to the North Koreans. Like Virgil said that, and they were like, "Oh, what the hell are you talking about?" And he actually went into detail explaining this, and explaining it quite well to the North Koreans. And he asked a lot of questions, and he was a hit among the North Koreans. And I thought, perhaps I should learn to be more like Virgil. But I think because of this attitude of his, he didn't suspect any dangers, like of firstly speaking at the conference, and also he's accused of doing a whole lot of things afterward. And I think he was very transparent about everything to the FBI, and ultimately the charges, conspiracy to violate the sanctions law. So it's not necessarily that he had benefited North Korea, but it's that he's accused of having the intent of doing so, and having acted upon that intent.
Yeah, so I think the Wikipedia page says on November 28, 2019, Virgil Griffith was arrested by the FBI for providing highly technical information to North Korea, knowing that this information could be used to help North Korea launder money and evade sanctions. And so, again, maybe a silly question, but from your perspective, is this just a big misunderstanding, and Virgil was just there out of genuine curiosity, or was he actually through some perhaps I don't know, misguided? Well, I'm not going to try and guess at his motivations, but was he really trying to further North Korea's abilities to use the blockchain for, I don't know, their own purposes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think he had any bad intent in the first place. And I should note, he has not derived any benefit for himself through this. He wasn't paid or anything. In fact, he paid to go there like everyone else. And while I wouldn't go into the specifics of what was said at the conference, because Virgil is still due to be sentenced, but I would say that in general, what was said at the conference, it was really just publicly available information. It was and it was something that you can read from the Wikipedia page. So it's not that spectacular. I didn't think it was anything to write home about. But I guess, when the US calls it, it's highly technical. Like it's a bit of a subjective thing. Like these words, they don't have objective definitions. What is highly technical? So when you label it that way, that's probably that may or may not be an accurate statement. So there's a chance it is. And ultimately, I think he did break the letter of the law, and as he had admitted. And ultimately, I think it's not so much about what he has or hasn't achieved, but it's more about sending a message. And I think he is being made an example of.
Yeah, that's right. That seems to be the explanation, if you like, that makes the most sense. And so I don't know if we've made this clear, but 2 weeks ago, Virgil, he actually pleaded guilty to advising, I think pleaded guilty to conspiring to help North Korea. So, I mean, people plead guilty all the time when they aren't necessarily guilty, but I mean, I can guess, but what would be your guess as to why he did plead guilty to perhaps one of these charges?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think firstly, he probably did break the letter of the law, and the fact that what was said at the conference, the defense says it's just publicly available information. If you read the court documents, the prosecution was saying like that doesn't matter, and so and the prosecution, they even have a recording of his remarks at the conference, and it does look like they have a pretty good case. So, and ultimately, in the days leading up to the case, Virgil also had quite a lot of setbacks, and I think perhaps he just weighed the odds, and maybe it wasn't a battle worth fighting.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, we certainly wish Virgil the best of luck going forward. I guess we should just zoom out a little bit now, Ethan, as we finish off this part of the podcast. I've kind of I've just skipped through an advanced copy of your book, and one way to sum it up, and look, this is just from the bio, I think, but I thought it's quite insightful when it talks about, as well as the North Korea stuff, you kind of are looking at crypto not just through the technical lens, but also I suppose from a younger generation, right, that is kind of experiencing quite an intense world at the moment. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of angst and anxiety, and then I suppose the backdrop of that is Bitcoin as a potential, not means necessarily of rebellion, not even necessarily as a means a way out, but in some respects it is. And of course that also plays into the Wild West analogy that you use in the title. So yeah, I'd love to sort of get your perspectives on what you feel that represents, certainly as an early Bitcoin guy, and just what you're trying to express on behalf of your generation, or just from what you see yourself.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think lots of people call crypto the Wild West of finance, and they use that term in a bad way. But I don't think the Wild West is a bad thing. The Wild West is awesome. And what's the attraction of the West? In the past, people, they departed the old world for the new, and they sought the frontier, because back then, going to the West, it means lots of opportunities there, and you're free from the old societal hierarchies. What you were before, it doesn't matter. Everyone starts anew here. And just like in the past, more so than now, I think 5 years ago, you enter crypto, even the most experienced person in it only has 5 years more experience, 5 years more experience than you. So, if your life is bad, crypto is a place where you go, where you can bury your name and be born anew. And I think my generation specifically, we are quite hemmed in. Research shows that we go through more restrictive adolescence than previous generations. Most kids don't have neighbors their own age that they talk to. And also, and from there, we mature into a worse economy. And studies abound of how this generation is less likely to own houses, less likely to have permanent jobs, to have access to healthcare. And in the UK, millennials are the first generation to have worse health than their parents. But we don't have any new worlds anymore. We don't have places to escape to. But I've always viewed crypto as a world in itself because, you know, industries can spawn subcultures and vice versa. But one is always less than the other. You know, finance bros, you think they all look alike, but it's hard to find two who are driven by the same thing. And people who play Dungeons and Dragons as kids, they stop when they're adults because they realize you can't be a professional dungeon master. But I think in crypto, not only does it have like ideology to bind its adherents, it also has money constantly pouring in to keep that passion burning. And so it becomes more than a subculture and an industry put together. I think that is a world. It's self-contained. And I think that represents this new frontier. It's the 21st century version of the new world.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting and wonderfully said, Ethan. And yeah, I love the point about, you know, people, they enjoy playing a dungeon master in Dungeons and Dragons, but in the kind of the old model, you might reluctantly think that you've got to grow up and leave that behind. But, you know, there's no reason why you should. And in the metaverse, if we kind of try and stretch this slightly forced analogy out even further, you know, anyone can be whoever they want to be. And yeah, I mean, that's quite exciting. So there might not be too many physical spaces left to explore, but man, the digital Wild West is infinite, and we're only just beginning to even enter it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're putting it in even better terms than me.
I don't know about that, Ethan, but we'll take it. Look, that feels like a nice place to go to a very quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll have some fun. We'll finish off with the very famous Crypto Conversation Hot Take Round.
In today's crypto market, the team at Brave New Coin are the sector's leading builders of custom crypto indices. BNC's powerful indexing engine draws on Brave New Coin's premium data to calculate high-frequency intraday and end-of-day indices for a wide range of index products. BNC's custom indices help you to gain exposure to the crypto assets class and track your performance against the market without having to become a stock picker. Brave New Coin's custom indices team delivers experienced consultancy, premium data, and trusted calculation. Contact BNC today to find out more.
All right, we're back, and I'm with Ethan Liu. Ethan is the author of a really fun new book called Once a Bitcoin Miner, Scandal and Turmoil in the Cryptocurrency Wild West. And we'll just give a brief shout out to the book again at the very end of the show, but it's out very soon, I believe. But Ethan, I'd like to finish off with just a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know whether my answers will be smart, but you know, I have no shame.
They don't have to be smart. They just need to be reasonably quick and snappy, hot take style, but say whatever you want, have some fun. All right, Ethan, where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-coin opportunist spectrum?
I think I'm like maybe 80% maximalist. If you want to talk my personal holdings, I guess actually now a lot of my alts have grown and I haven't actively managed, but when I was actively managing, it was like 80 to 90% Bitcoin.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, well, what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion, Ethan?
Well, I don't think this is. I don't think Bitcoin's going to go to zero. And I think recently, Jamie Dimon of, the big banker guy, he said, do we even really know that there are going to be 21 million Bitcoins? And I think that opinion is crap.
I'm with you there. Yeah. Jamie from JP Morgan. Yeah. I mean, and I've seen some people tweet back at him, bro, just check the code. It's in the code. Well, Ethan, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. You know, you've been in Bitcoin perhaps longer than most. Anything you like here, Bitcoin, blockchain, Ethereum, what does it look like in 10 years' time?
Oh, wow. I think that's very hard to predict because when I first entered in 2013, I totally did not expect us to be where we are now. So I think 10 years later, I think it'll be kind of a ubiquitous thing. And I think specifically this central bank digital currency, that will be a very big thing.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I suppose the flip side of that is that, William Gibson said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And you'll appreciate that more than most, having gone to places like North Korea. Can you think of an example, though, Ethan, of the future being here right now, but most people just aren't really aware of it?
Well, that's a good question. It makes me think of this story I heard of, I believe it was told by Alex Gladstein, and this young woman from Afghanistan, when they were trying to escape the war-torn country, a lot of them couldn't take their money with them because the banks were shit, their currencies are shit. But she had Bitcoin and she memorized the passphrase, and she escaped through the Middle East. Her ship sank in the Mediterranean. She had nothing but the clothes on her back, but she was able to fund a new life with what she memorized in her head. I believe was like 2 Bitcoins, and yeah, that's a lot. And yeah, I think that is an example of how the future is here.
Yeah, I love that, and that's great. It's so it's such a simple concept, but so absolutely sci-fi at the same time. The idea that you can just simply memorize, effectively a 12-word phrase would do it, and store, well, I mean, anything from 2,000 to $2 billion really in your head. Be quite stressful, I think, kind of trying to skip across war ravaged borders, and every night as you go to sleep you're probably repeating that phrase to yourself before you go to sleep. Still be stressful though, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I don't memorize my own passphrase. Like I feel that also has its drawbacks. If you memorize it, it can be tortured out of you,
Absolutely. All right, well, let's start to finish this off. Ethan, time to zoom out, time to get weird if we haven't got weird already. What do you see as the long-term future for the human race? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
Oh wow, that is a good question. I don't know. How do you define long term? Like thousands of years?
Oh, whatever you like, my man.
I wouldn't go as far to say dystopia, but I think definitely we will see bigger gaps between the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah. I think that's inevitable at this point. All right. Well, let's finish this off, Ethan. What is your favorite science fiction, book, film, show, or universe?
Well, I don't know if we would consider this science fiction, but in one of my university classes, we went very deep into Watchmen, and that was a science fiction class, and which is why I bring this up here. And yeah, so if that can be considered to be this genre, that is my favorite.
Oh, I think Watchmen is unquestionably would fit under science fiction for sure. Gotta love it. Alan Moore, shout out. All right, let's close this out, Ethan. I've enjoyed meeting you and talking to you today. So yeah, this has been fun. Nothing else to say really, except to hand the metaphorical microphone back to you, please feel free to give a kind of a promo, a shout out for your book. And I know you've written other books as well. So, you know, whatever you want to say, please do so. Tell people where they can get your books, and where they should go to follow you on Twitter or wherever you are on the wonderful world of the internet as we head into the metaverse. Take it away, Ethan.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll keep it short. So the title of the book is Once a Bitcoin Miner, Scandal and Turmoil in the Cryptocurrency Wild West. It's available wherever you buy books, but if you hate Amazon, you can go to a local independent bookstore, and if they're small, they may not stock it, but you know, they have access to all the same distribution networks, so they can order it. And I don't personally have like, my hate for Amazon isn't like a 10, maybe it's a 6, but if for you it's a 10, you can go to a local independent bookstore, and I can basically Google me to find me on the internet. My last name is spelled Lou, L-O-U.
Very nice, Ethan. All right. Well, hey, nothing else to say really, except thanks for coming on. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure.
All right. There you go. That was Ethan Liu. Yeah, as I say, I did enjoy chatting with Ethan. Fascinating guy. And man, you do kind of have to feel bad for Virgil Griffith, who is, I suppose, in the clutches of the sometimes and often nefarious US justice system. I mean, I don't know enough about this case really to speak with any insight, but you know, we have seen these, I suppose, when you know the justice system goes after, I don't even want to say hackers, but you know what I mean, people who are just on the frontiers of what's happening in technology, and through their own smarts and curiosity, they want to push the boundaries, and sometimes they get into trouble. Yeah, it's unfortunate. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks everyone for listening to the show. Please make sure you subscribe to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using, so you know when each new episode drops. All right. Thanks, team. This was the Crypto Conversation for A Brave and New Coin.